Welcome to our class. This week we will look at cookies and sessions. A cookie is one of our global variables. It is also an associative array. A cookie is a text file that's stored on the user's computer. It is sent from the server to the browser. Therefore, it is stored on the browser or the computer. Cookies are sent back and forth each time a page is accessed because information can be added to that cookie. Cookies typically expire when the browser is closed unless an expiration date is set when the cookie is created. So a cookie consists of a name-value pair. Collectively, we have key-value pairs. Contrary to some belief, cookies cannot do harm on the computer. Cookies are typically used to remember login information, settings, advertising, and also for statistics. You would set a cookie using the setCookie function. At minimum, you need to give the cookie a name. However, you can also set a value, an expiration date, a path, meaning where the cookie is valid on that website if needed. To retrieve the value in a cookie, you can either use the filter import function or access it using the $_cookie global variable array. Cookies are typically deleted by setting the expiration date to some point in the past, and here we see an example of using the string to time function. And you could check if the cookie exists by the isSet function. So let's take a look at how we would set and retrieve a cookie. Supposing we had a login page and there was a box saying, do you want to save this information? Because you're entering login information in a form element, we can retrieve the value with the $_post server variable, and we can store that in a variable. And that variable is the value. Now we're setting our cookie. We need to give the cookie a name, and in this case we are storing the value, which came from the form. Should you wish to set an expiration and a path, you may. So now we are setting this cookie. So at minimum, you need to have a name for that cookie in order to retrieve the value, similar to an HTML form element. However, we can set a value, and here this value came from a form element. Then, if we wanted to at some point say something in the web page, so we can say welcome or welcome back, and using the $_cookie global variable, access the name of that variable, and that will return the ID. And that will return the value, which is the name from the form. The HTTP protocol is what is called a stateless protocol, meaning it closes the connection after each request and response. So each time the browser makes a request to the server, that request goes to the server, and then the connection on the end of the browser is closed. The server sends back the response because it knows where to send it to via an IP address, and then afterwards it closes that connection. Similar to an email message. Both parties are not online when that email is being interacted with. So therefore, there is no way to associate that the request and the response came from the same place. So therefore, we need a session variable to do what is called maintaining state, to maintain a connection between that request and response. This is also called persisting data. Persisting the data that is collected on one page so that it can be carried through to the next page and the next page. So the session variable is a global variable, $_session, which is also an associative array. It is stored on the server. It is not stored in the browser. It is stored on the server. That data is on the server. However, it is identified on the browser with a session cookie ID. So an ID is written and stored on the browser. And that ID is sent back and forth each time the page is accessed so that that information is being tracked from page to page. Sessions always expire when the browser is closed. You cannot save a session. And sessions are not contingent upon cookies. A user may disable a cookie in the browser and the cookies won't work. However, the session will always work. Similar to cookies, the session consists of name-value pairs, cannot do any harm, and sessions are generally used for remembering data choices that are being collected from page to page, very typically in a shopping cart or a multi-page form. You begin a session with session_start function. This needs to go at the top of every page, the beginning code on every page, and it has to be on every page. You just can't put it on the first page. It needs to be on every page to continue that session from page to page. To retrieve the value of a session, it will be $_session and whatever name that session is. You cannot use filter_input as we did with cookies. You can also store an array in a session. And here is an example of storing an array in the session. The isSet function can be used to check if the session exists. You can remove the session variable with the unset function to remove the value for a specific session or for all of them. However, that just removes the values. To end the actual session, you would use session_destroy. We have a session_name function, and that gets the name of the cookie that is holding that unique ID. The default is PHP SESSID. And the session_ID function will retrieve a unique ID. If you pass it a parameter, you can set your own ID. The print_r function is used for testing so that you can see all of your key value pairs in the session. This also works for a cookie. So let's take a look at how to set and retrieve a session variable. Here we have the scenario. We have some data coming in from a form, and we're setting the value of that form element called login to, in a variable, $user_ID. We need to start the session. We would access the value using the global variable and sending the parameter of its name. It will return the value, and then we can use that same expression to display the value, which in this case would be the user's ID.